Alright, so let's go ahead and play around with working with the shape tools. Like the line tools, we have numerical control. We can activate the symmetry holding the shift key. We end the creation of our shapes using the command key and clicking. We can create things from a center point holding down the alt key. And we can also resize and move these while creating, similar to what we did with the polar grid. So let's go ahead and play around and go over this. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and come over here to this upper left-hand corner of these rectangles, and I'm going to access my rectangle tool. So I'll hit the M key, or I can come over here and find that here in the toolbar. And I'm going to go ahead and click over here in this corner, and I'm going to get the numerical control to give a particular size to my rectangle. I'm going to make this 1 inch wide by 3 inches tall, and then click OK. And there you can see this gave me a 1 inch by 3 inch rectangle. I'll hold down Control and click to end that. And then make sure as you're working, let's keep our smart guides on. So if I go to view, I should see a check mark next to my smart guides. So make sure you have that on while you're working. I'm going to go ahead and come over here next to the corner, the right hand corner of that last rectangle, and I will draw a new one. Okay, and you can see those smart guides make it so that drew really accurately another rectangle right next to it. I'm going to go ahead and click in that same corner, and I'm going to experiment. I'm going to have my smart guides find the center of the last rectangle that I just made. I'll go down from there, and I'm looking for what says intersect, and the smart guides are telling me that I am aligned to that center point. And so this just gives you more accuracy when you are working with your shape tools. So now you can see if I do command click, it looks like they're two evenly dimensioned rectangles, okay, but all I did was use that center line. I'm going to go ahead and make another rectangle and just click and drag here. Okay, and then I'll just kind of line that up with the last one that I made. My smart guides are telling me that this is lined up. Okay, and then do command click, and then I'll finish this off. Do one more rectangle. Okay, and I'm just kind of looking, I'm holding down on the mouse key, waiting for those smart guides to tell me that I'm lined up with the other shapes, and then I'll release. Let's play around with creating a rectangle from the center. So I'm going to come right over here and hover inside the center, and then the smart guides will tell me that I'm on the center of that last rectangle I made. This time I'll hold down on the Alt key, and then I'll begin to click and drag. And then using my keyboard gymnastics, I'm going to also hold down on the Shift key to get a symmetrical square. So now you can see I'm making a square that's directly from the center of that last rectangle. So once I get it to the dimensions that I want, I'm going to release the mouse first, then release the keys. I want to have this filled in, so I'm going to hit Shift and X to switch the stroke and the fill, and then I'll do command click. So I'll do the same thing right over here. I'll hold down on the Alt key, and this time I'm not going to hold down on the Shift key. I'm going to just freeform this rectangle. And right about there, I will release, hold down on the Control key and click. Let's go ahead and use the other rectangle tool. It's called the rounded rectangle tool. So I'll go ahead and come over here in my tool panel and click and hold down, and right below rectangle tool is the rounded rectangle tool. So now that I have that, I'm going to come over here and I'm actually going to start in this corner, and I'll start clicking and dragging. By default, the roundness of my corners are pretty accurate to what the template shows. But if I wanted to change how round those corners are, I can use the up and down arrow keys. So if I use the up arrow key, I'm basically going to make those corners more round. And if I hit the down arrow key, it's going to kind of flatten out the corners of that rectangle. I'll go ahead and click and release, and we're still on fill. I want to switch that, so I'll hit Shift and X to switch the stroke and the fill. I'll go back up to the stroke in my control panel, and I will increase that to 3 so it's easier to see. And then I'll do command click. So I want this one to be lined up with the last one that I made. So I'm hovering right next to the corner of that last rectangle. My smart guides are telling me I'm lined up. I'll go ahead and click and drag and get the rough dimensions of that last rectangle. And this time I'm going to decrease the size of those rounded corners. So I want it to be less. I'll release the mouse, hit command and click. All Alright, let's do one more. So I'm going to line this one up with this part of my other rectangle. And I'll click and drag. And this time I want these corners to be really round. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and hit the up arrow key. Remember, I'm still holding down on my mouse. I'm going to get these ones just ridiculously round, right about there. I'll click and release, and then do command click. Alright, let's come up over here and work with our ellipse tool, also called the circle tool. So you can find that. I can click and hold down on the shape tools and find the ellipse tool. Can also hit the L key. And like our other tools, if I click and drag, okay, I start to pull out a free-form ellipse. I can move the ellipse around as I'm making it by holding down on the spacebar key. You can see I can move that into place, release the spacebar key, and then continue to kind of find the final shape. When I'm done, I'll release, hit the command key, and click. I'll do the same thing again. This time I'm going to drag an ellipse from this side, and I'll use my spacebar to kind of move that up into alignment, and then release again. Just do it a few more times for practice to kind of get a better handle on how to use this. And then when I like where I want it, I will release the mouse. Command and click one more time, and I will do one more ellipse over here on this side. You can see as I go up and down, it kind of reflects it along an axis. I'll hold down on my spacebar key to kind of move this into place. Okay, release the spacebar and do a final sizing, and that'll be good. Command key and click. Let's go ahead and create a circle from the center. So I'll hover inside this part here and I'll hold down on the Alt key and then I will click and drag. And there you can see I'm creating the circle from the center. I'll do command and click. This time I'm going to hover back inside that last ellipse I made and I'm going to look for the smart guides to tell me that I am locked onto the center. Once I'm there, I'm going to hold down on the Alt key again and click and drag. And now it's almost as though I'm creating another concentric ellipse from that center point. I'm going to release the mouse, then release the Alt key, command and click. Okay, and now I'm going to just get some more practice with creating those circles from the center, okay, over here. So this time I'm going to hover inside this center. I'll hold down on the Alt key. I'll begin to click and drag. While holding down on the Alt key, I'm also going to hold down on the Shift key. So now I have a perfect symmetrical circle. Once I have it to about where the template is indicating, I will release the mouse first, then the keys. Command click, then I'll come back, find that center, and then I'll do the same thing. Command click when I'm done, and then I'll do one more circle. Release, and this time I will switch to the fill, so Command X. Okay, so let's end our shape exploration by working with the polygon and the star tool. So we're going to find that we need to use our arrow keys yet again to work with adding and subtracting sides, in this case for the polygons, and adding and subtracting rays for the stars. I'll come right over here back to my shape tools, click and hold, and I'll go down to where it says Polygon Tool. So as I click and drag, I don't know where your defaults are at, but some of you might be getting something more akin to a hexagon. But go ahead and explore, use your arrow tools. Okay, so if I go down as far as I can go, triangle is the smallest polygon that we get, but I can go up basically into infinity. I don't know if you want to do that, but you can see that this allows for that manual control over the sides. I'm going to go ahead and click and release, and I'll just delete that. This time I'm going to do the numerical control. So I'm going to find the center, and this time I'll just click once, and it's going to ask, how many sides do you want on this shape? Yes, I want 3, and let's have the radius at 1 inch, and then click OK. And maybe 1 inch was a little too big, but that's okay. I'm going to go ahead and hold down on the command key, and I'm going to hover right next to the corner of that bounding box and click and drag. And you can see now I can size the shape into place, and we'll go over that more. And I will switch the stroke and the fill, so Shift and X, and then I'll go back and increase the stroke weight to 3. Alright, so let's go ahead and play around with making some polygons from the center point. So I'm going to go ahead and roughly find that first center. I'll hold down on the Alt key and click and drag. Now you have to be holding down on the Alt key that is next to your arrow keys. So now that I am dragging that from the center, I'm going to go go ahead and hit the up arrow, and let's go ahead and create an octagon, so 8 sides. If I hold down on the shift key, okay, now I'm going to get nice 90-degree angles on this shape. Once I find what I like, I'm going to release the mouse, then the Alt and Shift key. I'll do Command click, and let's do it one more time. Let's find that center. Hold down on the Alt key. I'm going to start clicking and dragging, and this time I want to make a hexagram. So that is 6 sides. I'll hold down on the Shift key as well to get it at nice 90-degree angles. Release the mouse, then release the keys. Hold down on the Command and click, and let's do it one more time with the pentagram or pentagon. This time I'll decrease the size about right there. Hold down on the Shift and release, and just for fun, let's switch the stroke and the fill. Finally, the star tool. So I'll come over here to the polygon, click and hold, find the star tool, and I'll roughly find that center. By default, the star tool creates the polygons from the center, so you don't have to hold down on the Alt key. And so what we're looking at here is just our default star shape. I can hold down on the Shift key and kind of move it as I'm creating. If I press the up key, I'm going to increase the amount of star rays, and if I hit the down key, I will decrease the amount of star rays. Okay, if I decrease it too much, it just goes back into a triangle shape. I'll go ahead and finish this first star. I'll hold down on the Shift key to make sure it's at 90-degree angles and release. Hold down on the Command key and click. I'll find that center again. Okay, I'll click and drag from that center. This time I'm going to increase the number of rays, so I want to match what the template has. And just for fun, if I hold down on the Alt key, it goes more of a flattened star shape. If I hold down on the Command key, I'm going to increase the length of these rays. So I'm holding down a Command, but I'll just bring those back to where the template has them. So I'm holding down on the Alt key, finding the size of those rays, and release. I'll do Shift X, increase the size of the stroke to 3, and Command click.